Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, an in-depth review of Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, but not Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers. I am joined, as I always am, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. Mark, how's it going?
It's going great. Patrick, happy Thanksgiving.
And a happy Thanksgiving to you, not Mark, but our listeners, but also to Mark. We are also joined sort of in the studio, which is also my house, which is also my kitchen, by my girlfriend Sarah, who is making a soup at the moment. So if you hear any chopping or boiling or sizzling, that's what that is.
Yeah, I mean, basically what we're saying is put this on in the background, and it's like you're having Thanksgiving with us.
See, here's my objection to that.
Or I guess not like Thanksgiving itself, but you're sharing the meal prep time with us.
That's right. But there's probably meal prep happening where you are right now. So
sure.
You're going to be hearing double meal prep, which is a lot. And I apologize.
Yeah, well, definitely put on headphones, shut out your loved ones.
There you go.
And spend some time with us.
There, just the thought of hearing like two different meal preps at one time. There is a possibly apocryphal story of Mahler, Gustav Mahler, the composer, walking around a street fair with his friends, and there's like a little like 3-piece band playing over here, and like a small string orchestra playing over here, and they're playing totally different things. And he, pompous jerk that he is, stops his friend and is like, "Do you hear this? That's polyphony," because it's multiple musics happening at one time. But what a jerk, right?
Yeah, it sounds no fun to be a friend of Mahler.
No one wants to be a friend of Mahler. Look, if you want to not be a friend of Mahler and instead be a friend of Sonic the Hedgehog, you can try to do that by borrowing my copy of Sonic Forces. All you have to do, Mark, what do you have to do?
Send an email to us
at Nintendo Cartridge Society
at gmail.com. With your mailing address, you will go on a list of other people who want to borrow Patrick's copy of Sonic Forces, and when it's your turn, Patrick will mail his copy of Sonic Forces to you and include return postage.
That's right. I take care of the whole thing. Literally all you need to do is exist and drop it back off in a mailbox.
It doesn't make any sense, but it works.
Well, what do you mean it doesn't make any sense?
Well, I mean,
like what's motivating me to do
right,
this?
It's a copy of Sonic Forces that you have now paid for many times over.
Oh, to be shipped out across the country and back
to
again
share
and again?
the joy of Sonic Forces. Nah, you talked me into it.
Yeah. No, it's a good idea. No one's arguing that's not a good idea. The last time it came back to us, there was some writing on it. The game itself, the package had some writing on it. I'm hoping that future borrowers will continue to deface this thing until it is no longer recognizable.
Yeah. We don't want to know what we're mailing back and forth.
That's right. Well, I should know. They ask me. They say, "Are there any explosives in here?" And I always confidently say no. But I guess I don't know. I don't know what people are doing to this thing. We can assume, gentle assurance that the copy of Sonic Forces that you borrow will not explode in your house. All right, Mark, should we get into our big topic of the week?
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it.
We got to talk about Pokemon Let's Go Eevee. First question, of course, Mark, why Eevee?
Oh, okay. Even on this show, I
Yes.
went on the record saying that, I'm probably going to end up getting Pikachu. I like Pikachu. I think he's cute. He's the consensus choice.
Right. And the choice of a new generation.
Yes.
He's the Pepsi of
Pokemon.
Right, that's right.
Here's the thing. This was an opportunity for me to break out of my shell, grow as a person.
Sure. This is you challenging
the paradigm.
Yeah, sure. Is picking the Eevee instead of the Pikachu. So that was really it. You were
that was really
trying
it.
to go like a little bit against your more baser instincts.
Right, exactly. Because of of course I was going to pick Pikachu. So why not pick Eevee when the material difference is basically none?
Right.
Which is not actually true because you are, or I am, very attached to my Eevee.
Yes. Well, and there are other Pokemon that are exclusive to the versions of this game, right?
Yeah,
there are
that's
some
right.
that do not appear in Eevee that and others that do not appear in Pikachu. Ironically, you can get a Pikachu in Eevee and vice versa, and you can get all of the other starters in both versions. The game kind of like knows what you want and offers it to you,
which I'm totally on board with. Here's the thing: this is maybe the best Pokemon game I've ever played.
Whoa!
Because I think we both like Sun and Moon.
Yeah,
and that was the most recent one we played. Before this game resolves a lot of my problems with Sun and Moon, or like the aspects that I didn't find very fun in Sun and Moon or Pokemon in general.
Sure. So what aspects are there? So let's start there.
Okay.
So I didn't pick up this game.
Sure.
I would say that neither of us are big Pokemon guys. That you are probably a bigger Pokemon fan than I. Would we say that is fair?
Sure.
And a part of the reason that I'm like, I don't necessarily need Pokemon in my life all the time is because there's a lot of, probability that you have to like wade through. There's a lot of just grinding stuff, and there's a lot of just optimization of, who your Pokemon are and what they do. And also, when we were playing a little bit this weekend, we had to look up the type weaknesses, type vulnerabilities over and over again, because I don't know offhand what's weak against lightning.
Water? Well, I mean, we can take like a guess.
Yeah,
and that is completely fair. And maybe a good caveat to put up front is that like I am definitely by no means a Pokemon expert. I just don't care. Like I don't care about the weaknesses. That's not why I'm like playing the game. At no point in any Pokemon game have I ever tried to capture them all or tried to do any of the post-game content. Like I just do not care.
Right, you're there for whatever the like main like experience is. I'm not going to say like the story, because the story's kind of weak, right? It's just you're trying to be the very best.
I mean, Pokemon, and that's why Pokemon Let's Go works so well for me, because it's the elements that I enjoy of Pokemon brought to the forefront, and the stuff I don't care about, I'm just totally ignoring, and the game doesn't even try to bring to my attention.
Okay, so what do you think that is that you are able to ignore? Well, first of all, how do you think this game fixes some of the problems that you have with Pokemon? And then what are you able to ignore in this game
so
that
like
you still don't like?
No random battles.
Yeah.
I love it.
So you can see the Pokemon you can see them climbing around in the tall grass. And you can just say, nope, I don't need another Caterpie, and you can just move on.
And it just speeds the whole game up because, you could run away from like encounters you didn't want to participate in previous games, but it takes a long time to load into an encounter, say, I want to leave, and then try to flee.
And then sometimes fail for a round, and then your Pokemon takes a little bit of a beating, and then eventually you do leave.
And there are still times where I like get into encounters that I didn't necessarily want to in Pokemon Let's Go, because either I didn't see a Pokemon or one like darted towards me really quickly. But
that's true in all like turn-based RPGs where like you can see the enemies on the map. You can't avoid everything, even if you're trying to avoid everything.
So that's a huge one for me. The second big one is I am really enjoying the catching mechanic that they kind of like took from Pokemon Go the mobile game, where instead of having to battle in a wild encounter and then whittle the wild Pokemon's health down before you try to capture it with a Pokeball, they cut out all of that, and now you're just basically tossing Pokeballs at the enemy or the wild Pokemon, and then eventually you're able to capture them with enough perseverance. Though occasionally they will run away.
That is definitely something that I think the normal series, it just like the practice of like trying to whittle a Pokemon down to a very specific sliver of health without going too far and killing them is so like reverse of how the rest of combat in that game works, where it's like these should be two separate activities.
Yeah, I just never found it fun.
Yeah,
But
'Cause
for
you
so
just
long, it's
accidentally
just
kill
like the
stuff all
way
the
that
time.
it was.
Yeah.
And there's still, because there was something fun about the random encounter where you enter a battle and it's a Pokemon you need or want or you haven't seen before. Like there was something exciting about that, but I still get that fun
When you see it on like the
on the
overworld.
map, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I have to run over there real quick.
Yeah.
And that like Abra disappears, and you're like, darn it.
I mean, things still appear at random, right? Like then you just have to like either chase it down or it chases you down. So it still has that like there are random encounters, but you can just run away from them.
Yeah. And I guess those are like the two big like quality of life improvements that I've really been enjoying in Let's Go.
And you find that having like the trainer battles in there is enough of like the actual combat mechanics to like keep you satisfied.
It's plenty for me.
Yeah.
Because Let's Go is basically it is exactly what you expect from a Pokemon game, but it's in HD. So, one of the things that we talked about in our review of Sun and Moon is that when you're in like the overworld or like a town walking around, people are just standing around blankly. You'll walk into a room and people are just like arms at their side, staring at the wall, standing next to the television.
Right, and
until
even
you go up and encounter with them.
Even your character, when something big and dramatic is happening, is just sort of staring there with his giant Pokemon anime eyes, and like is not very expressive or emotive. And I think that's still present here, right?
Oh yeah, that's exactly how the overworld in Let's Go acts. But one thing that it does so much better is that all of the Pokemon are adorable.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that a little bit. So you'd mentioned that you are very attached to your Eevee. She's cute.
Mm-hmm.
And every now and then you can play with the Eevee, where you just like go in and pet her and like poke her tail.
Yeah, and like occasionally
what
she'll want to play
with
like
her?
I mean, that's basically it.
Okay.
Like it's very similar to the mechanic that was in Sun and Moon,
Yeah.
where you can pet them and they're like maybe they don't want to get pet on their ears, and so you have to pet them in places where they want to be pet.
Does it? So you can only do that with your partner Pokemon, right?
Right.
Okay. And in Sun and Moon, it was anything.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you find that it is like more engaging to have it limited to just the one Pokemon, or do you sort of do you wish you could play with your Squirtle?
No, because I feel like one thing that the Let's Go games do really well is you feel a bond with your like starter.
Yeah.
In a way that you don't necessarily do in any of the other Pokemon games. Because like in Sun and Moon, you have a starter, but
right, you can rotate them out.
They are treated equally as any other Pokemon. Where in Let's Go Eevee, it's like this Eevee is yours for the entire game. Like they are going to be with you. They are your main Pokemon. They're going to be riding on your shoulder.
Right, adorable.
Like they're very cute. You can accessorize them. Right, you have the ability to, like throughout the game, you get costume pieces, and you can dress yourself up, and you can dress them up. Like the connection between you and your Pokemon is so much more fulfilling.
Sure,
in this game,
the little bit that we played over the weekend, there are times when it's like, oh, Eevee is really interested in what's happening over here at the front of the ship. And, Mark was about to leave the front of the ship, and I was like, hey, your Eevee wants to know what's going on over there. And, like, you go and, nothing really happens, but, like, she sees the front of the ship and she likes it. And there is something very satisfying about that you are doing simple tasks within the world just to make the Pokemon happy, is very, like, cute and appealing to me.
Yeah, I also think there's a lot that was gained by going back to like the original 151 plus Melton plus some of like the Alolan variations.
Yeah.
Because they are able to animate each Pokemon like their overworld animation, like when they're following behind you and when they're walking and all that kind of stuff. Like they're able to give that a level of detail that I don't know they would be able to pull off when you're
if there's
doing
like
it like 800.
Yeah, so I guess that's something worth noting if people haven't been spending the weekend playing this game. That in addition to your partner Pokemon, which rides on either your head or your shoulder, depending on which one it is, you can set another Pokemon. You can let them out of their ball, which just means that they sort of like travel around with you. And depending on what Pokemon it is, it has like a completely separate like animation or like way of interacting with how you're moving around the map. So like Mark has the Pokemon ball controller, and so he got a Mew, and when you have a Mew, it flies out in front of you. And when you have something else, like you had a Charmander that was like walking behind you, and then sometimes you would get the Onyx, which is an enormous stone snake, and you just ride it. And it's neat that there are like enough different ways that a Pokemon can travel with you. I mean, I know that's only 3 examples right there, and I can't really think of what else the other things would be, but it's neat to see just these various ways that a Pokemon can be by your side, basically.
I guess in general, just in general, the reason why I'm really enjoying this game is that I just find it very like pleasant, to play. I like the music. I think it's just the Pokemon music you're probably already familiar with, but having it not come out of like the tiny 3DS speakers.
Okay, that's fine. I was gonna say, don't you dare besmirch the speakers on the original Game Boy.
No, they were a strong, proud speaker.
That's right. You could run over those speakers with a bulldozer. They would be fine. Don't you dare sully the horrible crackling sounds that thing made.
So, I think it's very true that your mileage may vary with this game. If you are someone who is, I guess, like a really hardcore Pokemon player, it's hard for me to speak to that because that's not who I am.
Sure. Well, I mean, the little bit that we spent playing it this weekend kind of confirmed to me that I made the right choice in not getting this game. I don't have particular nostalgia for Pokemon Yellow, and when I say I don't have particular nostalgia, I mean I've never played it. I've played Blue, and but that was many years ago. I picked it up when it was on the 3DS eShop, just sort of as a trip down memory lane. But like, I don't like the nostalgia shot doesn't really do anything for me at this point, and especially because I feel like we've seen the original 151 in a bunch of different contexts. Like that's what Pokemon Go was when it started. Like I said, the re-release on 3DS. Like for me, that need has been filled. But again, I'm not the biggest Pokemon guy. It's clear that there's not really, at least to the point that you are in this game, any real challenge. Am I right on that?
Yeah, I haven't seen it at all. Like there has never been a time where I was worried I wasn't going to be able to just completely rock a battle.
Yeah. That you're just even going into like the trainers and gyms and stuff.
Yeah, and I haven't been optimizing my like team at all.
Right.
I just rock with whoever I want to.
There.
Yeah.
Just hope for the best. So we did get to play a little bit co-op this weekend, which is just me sort of hopping in on Mark's game and controlling a second Pokemon in every fight, which does make it twice as easy to win every fight, right?
Yeah.
So how did the co-op experience change like what you were doing with the game, or like how is it different playing it with me versus playing it by yourself?
It really wasn't that different. Like battles were faster because you were helping me defeat the enemy Pokemon.
Also looking up type charts.
Also looking up type charts. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I after a while stopped like going into. Well, no, that wasn't. I was gonna say you stopped going into every single room to see what was in there, but I did that anyways.
No, you said like, "Oh, I'll spare us going into all these rooms," and I said, "Okay," and then you were like, "I'm just gonna go."
Well, I gotta see what's in there. Maybe there's somebody who wants to buy something from, or I want to buy something from, or
It was
something.
that was never the case. It never happened.
It did not happen.
What-
No. It was like functionally not really that different at all.
Yeah.
It-
The one thing that was strange to me and seemed like a little bit of a pain point, but maybe didn't bother you as much as it was bothering me, that the game, it will allow a second player to drop in at any time. All you gotta do is pick up another controller, and as long as it's synced, and you just shake it, and then you're there. It spawns you in there. But for any like cutscene, and cutscene I'm using like generously, anytime the game like takes over for more than one dialogue box, the game is very specifically prepared to animate one trainer and one trainer only. So if Mark starts to talk to someone, that's going to be like a little bit of a conversation. My trainer like disappears in a puff of like blue, like a pillar of blue light, and then like the conversation happens, and then there's like an extra half a second when my trainer respawns. This same despawn, respawn happens anytime you enter a room.
Yeah, it can't handle two. It can't account for it. Two trainers walking into a room.
It's very strange. And so at some point, early in this process, when I realized as Mark is going into every single room to see what's going on, that I was like, oh, I'm just gonna bail on this right now, so we don't have to keep seeing that tiny little animation over and over again.
Yeah, the way we finally settled on doing it, where basically I would run around in the overworld, then you would join in for like a battle.
Right. Well, because also
the most ideal.
Yeah, and it doesn't make any sense. Excuse me. It doesn't make any sense for me to be there anyway, because when you're running around a town, because I can't talk to anyone, I can't search anything, can't interact in any way. All I can really do is run. And if you're catching wild Pokemon, again, all I can do is be there.
Right.
I can't also throw balls.
No, you can.
Can I?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then I didn't also throw balls. How are you finding the ball, the Pokemon ball?
Okay, so yeah, so I got the Pokeball Plus. You get it out of the box. It's very fun to look at.
Right.
It's tactily very satisfying.
It has a
like
nice
a grippy like
texture.
rubber.
Yes.
But I don't like playing with it.
Don't tell me why.
Well, it's too small, and
Yeah.
I'm an adult, but I don't have like especially enormous hands.
Now, we've talked about this before. We are giant men with giant man hands. So maybe this thing, which was almost certainly created for children, is a little too small to fit comfortably in our hands.
Yeah. I feel like for me, it needed to be like twice as big.
Yeah.
Because I had to like kind of like grip it in a strange way. Almost like I was playing like Guitar Hero or something.
Sure. Or Guitar Hero World Tour. Is it World Tour, the one that you take, the 3DS one? Or I guess just regular old DS?
Oh, and it has like the like key accessory that you put in at the bottom.
Yeah, you plugged into the Game Boy Advance slot, and it just had 3 buttons on it, and all 3 buttons were so close together, and then you're strumming on the like touchpad with a special stylus that's shaped like a pick.
Oh, brother, that thing probably sold like 10 billion copies.
I bought one. It was fun, although it was so imprecise when strumming it that there were some songs that were rendered almost unplayable, like Barracuda. Dun, ticka, dun, ticka, dun, ticka, dun, ticka, dun, ticka, dun, dun. It was impossible to do.
I can't even imagine trying to strum on the 3DS like resistive touch screen.
Yeah, it didn't work. But so yes, that guitar accessory was made for hands smaller than mine, which I feel like are the same hands that this Pokeball Plus was made for.
Yeah, exactly. So I have to hold it strange, which like cramps my hand after a little bit. And
cramping my hand, man.
And the you are also kind of like just constantly fiddling and shifting with it, which when you go to like toss a Pokeball at a wild Pokemon, who knows what direction it's facing.
Yeah, sure.
That being said, it is fun to play with in the sense that when you catch a Pokemon, it's very satisfying. It has a speaker in it. It has little LED light around like the circle part
center
of the
ball. Yeah, I don't know what it's called.
And it has HD rumble. So when you're trying to catch a Pokemon, and there's like the 3 stages where it's like and then click. Yeah, you feel that in the hand, and then when you catch it, the LED light like changes to the primary color of the Pokemon, and it lets out a little sound. It's fun. It's satisfying to play with if my hand was smaller.
Have you done the thing where you put a Pokemon in the ball and then walked around with it?
I haven't. I've put it into the ball, but then I didn't walk anywhere with it. And then I played again, and so I took it out.
Right. Because, you want to use that Pokemon.
Yeah.
Who did you put in the ball?
I think I put, I don't know, one of like, not even one that was in my like starters.
Sure, not even one.
Yeah, I don't even know, the like bellflower thingy.
Sure, good. Does this game let you nickname Pokemon?
Yep.
When you get them? Okay.
Mine was originally named my Eevee was originally named Cynthia, and then I was walking around with it, and I was like, my Eevee's just not a Cynthia, and so I went back to just calling it Eevee.
I think that's perfect.
Yeah, my rival's name is Chicken Feet.
Right. Very good. You care to explain that?
No.
Okay, good. Yeah, and you had mentioned to me that the rival is less of a rival.
Yeah, I mean, from the beginning, they're like, he lives next door to you, and you guys are best friends. So that's like your introduction to them.
That's fine. Friendly rivals.
Yeah.
All right. So you are enjoying this game, and you're going to. Do you have any like concept of how far you are into it right now?
So, what do they call them? Like the Final Four or something?
Sure. The Elite Four. Maybe?
Elite Four. Yeah. I am right to that point.
Okay.
And so or what I understand is that the game gets a little more challenging to defeat them. But I think I'm going to see it all the way through. That's my plan anyway. And yeah, I don't know. Like I said at the very beginning, it's kind of the perfect Pokemon game for me. Like it's what I want out of a Pokemon game. It satisfies me wholly.
So let me ask you this. Knowing now what this game is, and knowing that we have another generation of Pokemon coming up on the horizon, are there any things that this game does that you would like to see the Gen 8 take on in any way, or like adapt or use?
Well, it's tough because after playing Let's Go, I don't know how excited I am for Gen 8.
Yeah.
Because if it's just going back to what Sun and Moon was, I don't really want that.
Okay.
I don't want to have to do random battles again. I don't want to have to like battle a wild Pokemon in order to capture it. Like there's a better way. And so it seems like a regression to me.
I wonder if there's a way to sort of meld the two in one game, that like you can choose if you want random encounters. You can choose, whether you catch Pokemon just by throwing Pokeballs at them, or if you like whittling them down. Like really, what's even if the game becomes, like big and has the same sort of meta game that all the other Pokemon games have, like what really is the difference on an 1-to-1 capturing the Pokemon in the first place? Like what's really the difference there?
Yeah.
Is there one? I mean,
I totally agree.
And again, Mark and I are not Pokemon experts. There's a lot I'm sure that we are missing about how it is functionally different. But those just seem like good lessons that this game learned.
Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, I am interested to see what next year's Pokemon game looks like. I'm interested how they handle having 800 Pokemon instead of, like 175, because I do think that Pokemon Let's Go in a way has at least set expectations for what these games look like on Switch, like visually.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting.
Do you think that's what we're going to see in the next gen?
I have no idea, but like I do have some expectation that if a Pokemon is like I have the following Pokemon in Gen 8, that they will be well animated.
Yeah.
That they will be cute. And Not that it's impossible, but it just seems vastly more difficult to do when you're dealing with the amount of Pokemon that like exist in the world at this point. Plus, however many more you're adding.
Yeah, you know what I would like to see, and it's something that we touched on earlier, the sort of like stoic nature of like all of the human beings in this game. I would like to see a little bit more of a like the world itself does appear to be lived in. Like you can see that people are like the things are at tables, people have eaten, they're on vacation, whatever. I just like to see them doing something.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see them like the overworld fleshed out a little bit. I mean, you say, yeah, you can see people in their home at tables, but like everybody lives in a basically one bedroom or like a studio apartment.
A studio house.
And you know, like your sister is there, but she's sitting on a chair in the corner.
Right.
It's like, where do people exist in the world of Pokemon? And I don't actually care. You know, like I don't need the answers to these questions. But I would just like to see the world in general
just the world
a little more like
alive.
Yeah, a little more alive.
Because it like when there was a part yesterday where you were just running through, or I guess on Sunday, when you were running through an area that you had already cleared, already fought all the trainers, and it's funny to see just a bunch of people standing there not doing anything, just like a line
they're
of
just
people.
husks.
Yeah, they're just scarecrows that you've exercised their souls and they will never challenge you again, and that's it. And that's, you know, a lot easier to forgive when these are sprites on a Game Boy screen, and even kind of makes sense on Game Boy Advance screen. But as we get like bigger and more like realized characters, it's weird, straight weird to see them just kind of standing there doing nothing.
But you know, and I do feel like it's a balance because I personally don't need Pokemon to like radically transform.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need surprise me, maybe I do need a Breath of the Wild-esque Pokemon transformation, but I feel like Pokemon is a very specific thing, and both Pokemon and Dragon Quest travel in nostalgia.
Yes.
Right? Like, but what I think Pokemon has done really well that Dragon Quest Dragon Quest's fan base just continues to get older and older, and it's not getting like a ton of new fans, whereas Pokemon has done a very good job of continually growing the fan base by bringing in new players while like retaining people who've been playing for like a really long time. And because I feel like Pokemon does a good job of remembering that like every Pokemon game is somebody's first Pokemon game.
Just like a comic book.
Exactly. And so like the post game is usually where hardcore Pokemon players like find what they are looking for.
Yeah, and in like the meta
game and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like that's something you could do in Gen 8 is have like a strong post game that I don't know if, you know, Pokemon Let's Go necessarily does.
Yeah. Well, and this does not have it's not compatible with Pokemon Bank, correct?
Right, not compatible with Pokemon Bank. You can transfer Pokemon from Pokemon Go to Pokemon Let's Go, but you're transferring the Pokemon type. Like when you transfer it, its stats are reset. It doesn't even carry like the same nickname.
Oh, okay.
And you're not able, as far as I know, to transfer from Let's Go to Go. So it's like a one-way transfer.
Yeah, that you can just add characters to this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Who's your favorite Pokemon that you have right now? Don't say the Eevee.
Oh, don't say the Eevee?
Don't say the Eevee. That's the easy one. We were saying before, obviously, you love it.
I like that. I think the Onix is really funny.
Yeah.
Because I think it's really funny to... they represent the Pokemon in scale.
Oh, yeah.
So it's hilarious when you and I were battling, or you and I were doing co-op, and I would have the Eevee, you would be using the Onix, and somebody else would, you know, like, I don't know, have...
a Pikachu or something.
Yeah, like a Pikachu or something. And so the camera has to zoom way back to get everybody into the frame.
Yeah, because again, the Onix is like a 25-foot tall stone snake, and like an Eevee is maybe like 18 inches tall. How tall is an Eevee? Very small.
Very small. So it's funny to me to watch like the game deal with that.
Yeah.
Balancing the scale back and forth.
Any bummers that you're encountering in this game so far?
No, again, like I think my expectations were right.
Yeah, right in the right Right where you needed them to be.
Right in the zone for this sort of game. Like, it's an HD Pokemon game featuring the Pokemon that I'm the most familiar with, and I'm just enjoying it a lot.
So you've said what you have said. We know how I feel about this game in the abstract. Do you think I am making a mistake in not playing this game?
No.
Perfect. All right, Mark, let's close out our review of Pokemon Let's Go Eevee. I think I should have more conversations with people where I just say, do you think I'm making a mistake? I think it would add a lot of clarity to my life.
Well, I mean, it depends on who you're talking to.
It's true. It could complicate things. Obviously, you know how Mark and myself feel about this game, but we would love to hear everyone else's experiences with Pokemon Let's Go Eevee or Pikachu. I would be happy to hear about people's experience with that game as well. I have seen a lot of people playing it online, which we've been able to do because people make us their friends on Switch. You can do that by going into the episode description here and adding us on Switch. But here's how I find out how you're feeling about this game. You email us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com. Would really like to know what everyone's experience is here. Like, are you to the end game now? Is it sufficiently challenging when you're there? Really just everything. Want to know. And what do you want from Generation 8? It's coming out in a year, right? Sometime next year, we think.
Yeah, so they've told us.
Very exciting times, Mark. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. And happy Thanksgiving. You can stop ignoring your family now.
That's right. Take off your headphones. Listen to the actual meal preparation sounds. I mean, actually, maybe you were doing the meal preparation.
That's a great point. I think listening to a podcast is a great way to distract yourself while chopping vegetables. But be careful. Don't chop your fingers while you do it.
I mean, I would hate to think that we were responsible for that.
We might be directly responsible for that. Please rate, review, subscribe on Apple Podcasts. That sort of thing helps us out tremendously. We would be thankful for that. Or you could share the episode on Twitter or Facebook or wherever you share things. Perhaps around the Thanksgiving table. That'll be the last Thanksgiving reference as I close out the show here. Follow us on Twitter. I'm at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MKE Mitchell, and the show is at Nin Cart Society. And we're also on Facebook. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying, eat some stuffing. There was one more Thanksgiving reference in there. And thanks for listening.